You tell him, King Leo, you silly boy.
Back to the Lion's Den, and today's episode we're going to be talking about Witch Hat Atelier possibly being the next greatest fantasy anime. Now, my first impression of Witch Hat Atelier, it was at first I didn't think I would like it, right? Because when I watched the trailer, it was kind of more so. It looked more like a generic, like wizard, witch, like magical anime. But when I gave it a chance, I actually saw that it wasn't. It actually wasn't just a casual fantasy anime. It actually was very unique, and not just the way that they use magic in the show. That's not what just made it unique, but what made it unique was the way the world was, the way the art style was. The art style was something I haven't seen in a good little minute. It had very amazing animation, but it also had very amazing animation and a very great story. So we're gonna go ahead and dive into that. I will say this is. I'm gonna try to keep this video as spoiler free as I can, but without further ado, let's jump into it. So the first season of Witch Hat Atelier. The first season is a very good introduction, like every first season of an anime should be. I didn't read the manga, so I don't know how well it keeps up to the manga because I unfortunately did not read it. But from what I saw from the first season, it gives us a really great introduction into our protagonist. Her name is Coco, and basically her love for the world's power system, with that being magic. Now, she hasn't really had the best relationship with magic. It's kind of been like an on and off thing. And that's kind of like her major conflict is she can't use magic. And her dream is to be a witch, but only the witches in that world, they are the only ones that know how to do magic. And like the normal citizens, they just kind of think it as this like holy or godly like power. And so as we go on through the story, she meets this witch, and his name is Kiefer. He comes into her mom's shop to get some fabric, and someone's carriage breaks. And so Kiefer, being a witch, he fixes the carriage, but the way he does it is using magic. But the way that magic is done in Witch Hat Atelier is that it's secret. So only the witches know like how magic is used. And basically, he gets Coco to like guard the door so that people can't see him doing the magic. And then come to find out, she actually sees what he's doing. And the way that magic is used in the show is that they draw like different sigils or different like symbols, and they use like this magical ink. And Coco finds out that she has this book, and she starts practicing how to do magic, essentially. But come to find out, the book's cursed, and then she basically curses her mom. And Kiefer, he comes and saves her, and instead of wiping her memory, which he was going to do firsthand, he was going to wipe her memory, but instead of doing that, he takes her on as his apprentice. And that's very unprecedented in the witch world because since she is a normal citizen, she's not inherently known to the ways of magic, and she's not like in a royal family or in like the inner circle of witches. So she's basically seen as an outsider, and that's something that is very unprecedented, especially in the world of witches. And news spreads that, oh, there's an outsider that joined the witches, and basically the whole conflict comes because what Coco used, the book, it's forbidden magic. And you'll if you watch the show, you'll learn more about like the forbidden spells and kind of like what magic people don't use and like why they don't use that magic. And then like you'll see kind of like the different spells that they do use that they are free to use and stuff like that. And a lot of them are kind of basic, but I mean, depending on the type of spell, some of them, like some basic spells, can turn into like very powerful ones. Like I mean, they're kind of basics. The basis of like magic is like the basic elements like water, wind, fire, and I think light. So it's not. I think it's light instead of earth. But yeah, that's basically the whole overarching plot, spoiler free, of season one. And that's kind of like the whole main conflict is Coco's whole conflict basically with magic and like trying to figure out how to bring her mom, like how to uncurse her mom, how to free her mom from the curse like diamond prison that she had used to put her mom in, that curse magic spell had done. So next I want to get into the world building. Now we already touched on a little bit how magic works, but we could touch on that a little bit more in this segment. Magic is basically, it's ink. And that's what I love so much about Witch Hat Atelier, is that magic is not like, it's not something you use from like your body. It's not like some innate power, or it's not like some, like you don't use a book like a grimoire, or it's not innate. It's drawn, like it comes, it's ink. And that's really cool. Cuz like me being an art major in college, that's very interesting to see them merging art and anime and magic, like three of my favorite things. And that's very, very interesting because you have to draw sigils, and depending on the size of your sigil or your symbol, or like the how neatly it's drawn or anything like that, that can basically determine like what your spell does, how powerful your spell is, if your spell is strong, if it's weak, if it's huge, if it's small. Like if you draw like a fat sigil on something, then your spell is probably going to be like very big. But like if you draw like a little mouse tiny one, your spell is not going to be as huge. And if you draw it neat, like if you have amazing handwriting, like you could possibly kill somebody with that spell, depending on what the spell is. And if your handwriting is probably sloppy, you could probably end up killing yourself. Like I said, depending on what the spell is. And so that's very interesting. And also, anybody can learn magic. You just have to know how to draw, and you could basically learn how to use it. Like me personally, I don't like drawing really, so I probably wouldn't be able to really use magic like that well in Witch Hat Atelier. But I mean, if you practice at it, like Coco, she practiced at it, and towards like the end of season one, she's actually really, really great at it. So if you just keep practicing and you just like keep drawing and all that, I mean, you'd be a pretty great witch. So that's kind of how the magic works, and like you'll see like a lot of like their magical weapons or items or stuff like that have like those draw marks on them, because everything that they use that has magic, it has to be drawn on there. Like no matter what it is, it has to be drawn. So like in the first episode, when Keyfree fixes the carriage wheel, he has to draw all those sigils on there like one by one. He draws the whole symbol. And I mean, I think that's just really cool, because you don't really see like a lot in a lot of fantasy anime, like with the power systems, they're either innate, or like items give people magic, or like a crystal, or it's like a grimoire. But what anime except for Witch Hat Atelier have we seen where people are using art to conjure magic? Like that's a very unique, and it's a very original power system. And as for our next segment, which is the world's design, I honestly feel like that they merged Studio. It kind of gives me like a callback to Studio Ghibli, the way that art style looks, mixed with like a fantasy world, kind of like a Delicious in Dungeon, or like a fantasy isekai kind of like thing. Because the way like the food is done and stuff in Witch Hat Atelier, it gives me that Studio Ghibli, like early, maybe what, like 90s or like early 2000s look kind of. And I think that's very interesting. and the world is very whimsical. Like it's a very whimsical and magical world. It's just like maybe like a merger of kind of, it gives me Alice in Wonderland vibes, like world. That's kind of what it is. It gives me like that kind of world. And I think like a lot of the characters, I feel like it's in like Scotland because they sound kind of like like Irish to me. Um, so I think it's in Scotland. I think the fantasy world, like that's where the inspo came from. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like that's where the inspo came from. But the world is very it's very whimsical. Like it is extremely whimsical. Like even from the creatures to the way that like a lot of the the world, like the areas in the world are, like the grotto, um the library place where like the Leviathan is. Like you'll learn about that if you watch it or if you read the manga. And just like a lot of areas and like a lot of fantasy creatures in there give me like that whimsical feel for the world, and like the way the art style is done, like that picnic episode they had, it gives me a callback to the Studio Ghibli art style, like with Ponyo, Spirited Away, and Howl's Moving Castle, um and other Studio Ghibli movies, films like that. Because of how whimsical and how interesting the world is. And I also love how they fuse a lot of dark tones, like I said, with a lot of whimsical tones. Because I will say, Witch Hat Atelier is an extremely, kind of, not really extremely dark, but it is a fairly dark show. So, this isn't really, I'm gonna try to not spoil too much, but the villains in the show, are known as the Brim Hats. And they are like a darker form of witch, pretty much. Like you got the key, like you got Key Free, and then you got like Coco. Like those are the light. That's like the light side, and the Brim Hats are like the dark side. But they're like very twisted. They have very twisted views on how magic should be used, and they have like very twisted ideals on like magic in general. And kind of like when they appear, like the whole series just kind of gets like a darker tone. Take like for example, like from Spider-Man, from Spider-Verse, Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse. So when the whole like the black hole dude, the Spot, when he started out as like a goofy, whimsical character, and then like later in the series, like in the movie, I mean, he just kind of turned into like a whole like dark like agenda dude. Like he just turn a whole 360. That's kind of how the Brim Hats are. They're basically like a very eerie dark witch, and I think that's how that's really interesting of how they do the dark tones in the show. And with all like the main cast kind of being kids, kind of like Hunter x Hunter style, like maybe like they might be like around like 12 or like 13 or something, and them having to fight like some crazy boss level like monsters and people, like that's pretty dark for anime, at least. That is pretty dark. But they're also like joyful and whimsical parts of the show, like I said, the picnic episode, or like when Coco's like doing her first mission, or like stuff like different things like that, or like when they're cooking or practicing. Like there's whimsical and joyful parts, but there's also some dark tones, but they mix them pretty well, so where it kind of comes out cohesive, and it doesn't really come out as forced or like they're trying to rush too much in at one point. Now, if I could compare it to any other world, I would probably, like with the dark tones, maybe Delicious in Dungeon, like how excuse me, it's a little bit kind of like dark, but it's also kind of whimsical and joyful at parts too. Because Delicious in Dungeon has some like some crazy parts, like some darker parts, like that one dude that doesn't fight monsters, he kills humans. Like you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, or it might be soul leveling, but I think there's a dude in Delicious in Dungeon that also fights humans. He doesn't fight monsters at all. But if I could compare, I would say compare to maybe like Delicious in Dungeon, like with the mixing the dark tones and like the mixing like the darker, make the light story. I feel like, but definitely still Studio Ghibli art style mixed with like a darker kind of like fantasy anime. But our next segment, we're going to talk about Coco being a great protagonist. Now, Coco's not a bad protagonist. Um, she's very interesting. I do like her growth, like her character arc from the ending. I'm sorry, from the beginning to the ending, because she really grew from not really knowing anything about magic, not being near magic, because you have to understand that a lot of people are born into like witch inner circle or like witch families or like families that are like magic like incentive. Because like magic isn't innate in this world because you have to learn it through drawing, but they've been around like some kid, like most of the kids like in the series, like when we get into meeting like Keyfree's other apprentices and all this, they've been around magic since they've been kids or since they've been like very young. So Coco coming from not knowing anything or never being around really like a lot of magic and stepping into a world full of magic and like picking up like really quickly, practicing at it like all night and day, even till like her hands started to get like the ink all over them and stuff. And she picked it up very quickly, and I think that's really cool. And to see her character growth, like with her other apprentices, like for like some of them, not accepting her because she's like an outsider, and then to like their bond growing through like the missions and stuff that they do. I think that that is also very cool and interesting for her character arc and her growth. I am interested because if you have not seen the season 2 trailer or if you have not watched the anime, I do recommend you watch it or you go and see that season 2 trailer, because I have some theories and maybe we'll do a theory video about what I think season 2 will be as someone who hasn't read the manga. Because I can't really say too much, but I am interested in what they do with Coco's arc in the next season. What they do with her character arc, because I have some theories and I hope none of them are right because I really don't want to see her go down that road. But I mean, I'm all here for it. So let's get into the next segment, and this segment will be Coco's relationship with magic. And I think we touched on this a good little bit. So actually, yeah, we might just skip that segment. We might just go down to talking about like different characters since we touched on a lot of Coco stuff. Um, so let's touch on a little bit of Keyfree. Because Keyfree is one of my favorite characters out the whole show. I did post a video on TikTok talking about I thought Keyfree was evil. Now, this video is spoiler free for the most part, so I can't really talk about like why I think Keyfree is evil. But all I will say is I still do think he's evil because he's just doing a lot of like anti-hero stuff and a lot of stuff, but it kind of seems like he's just doing it because like it's his own personal agenda rather than like he doesn't want the Knights Morales involved, or he doesn't really want like anyone else involved in his mission of what he's trying to do. And it's kind of like the way he goes about it is kind of like anything goes, or like any way necessary, like, you know, like by any means necessary kind of thing. And I don't know, that just kind of gives dark to me, like that gives like dark villainous intent. Like it doesn't even give anti-hero really, it just gives like dark villain. But here lately, especially like in the last episode, I mean, he's calmed down on it somewhat, but I don't know. This second season, especially from the trailer, is looking like we're going to dive more into the Brim Hat stuff. And by the way it's looking, I don't know who's going to be a hero or who's going to be a villain, but my bet is still on Keyfree. And we'll also talk about Coco. She's also one of my favorite characters. And I've already talked about it because her character arc, I feel like her character arc can really go either way. Like it's really, and I'm really interested to see how they evolve her character arc in season 2. Like if her character arc does not go how my theory, how my theory is, I'll be happy. If it does go how my theory is, I'll be even happier because I mean this is like that's what I'm predicting is going to go. Just based off like the season 2 trailer and based off like some stuff I've been hearing, I don't really know. Like, it's hard to say, but Coco has a very interesting character arc, and it's kind of customizable too, because like a lot of the stuff that they set up, in the anime and the manga, a lot of stuff that they set up is just like they're just setting her up to basically be a character that can go either way. And I mean that's kind of cool because you don't really see that with a lot of anime where like a character is teeter tottering on like the verges of like just teeter tottering on the verge of like um blurring the lines, like blurring the line of light or darkness. Like I think as close as we have gotten, even though this webtoon doesn't have an anime yet, but Ordeal with Shay Hart, like he's teeter tot. Well, we do know kind of what road he goes down, but throughout the story, before we get to that part, he's teeter tottering on like where like the line, like where is the line? Like the line is very blurred. My last favorite character out the show is I think she's called Rashea or Rika or Rekka. But her character is very interesting, and I do like her defiance as well. Like she's very defiant on figuring things out on her way and things being like her done her way. Like she doesn't want to confide to like the cultural norm of the Witch Hat Atelier world. And that's very interesting to me because you all know how I feel about like conformity and being like confined to like the status quo of things. And I've even talked about that like in my Draconic Saga video about like Draconic Saga is going to be a very defiant heavy manga. And that's kind of what I wanted to build it off of because like I really love Defiance and that's why I like her character because she's very, even since she's been a kid, she's been very defiant on only using magic that she creates herself. Like she doesn't want to use like the basic spells or anything like that. Like if she doesn't make the magic or the spell, she's not going to want to use it. Just like in that episode with her and the god, like she wants to finish the mission using only her magic. And I think that's really cool because she's a very defiant and very strong-willed character, and she only wants to complete things by using her spells and only by like what she seems or deems like not tied down to the status quo. But let's get into ranking what I think are my favorite parts about the show. Like the things that they did well, the things that they did bad, the things that they probably could have did like a little bit better on, and then we're just gonna get into those. So I think they did good, really great with the character designs. I did love the character designs of the show. Like I said, I feel like it's based in like Scotland or like something kind of like that, especially like with the voice actors and stuff too. For English at least. So I do think it is based like somewhere around there. I should have researched that a little bit more before the episode, but I would definitely be researching that after. And maybe we'll do a video, like a little mini video on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube about it. Or maybe like another episode talking about like the world as a whole, because the world is really huge. I love the world of Witch Hat Atelier. Like it's really big. Like we could really just have this whole episode of just be talking about the world and the world building and how huge the world is. But I do love the character designs. I do love the characters' backstories as well. Like Kifri's backstory, we don't really know a lot. Coco's backstory, we know a good little bit, and about like all her other apprentice friends and Kifri's apprentices, like we know a little touch on like their backstories, but we don't really know like a lot. Because the show doesn't really go delve into backstories unless like it's really necessary for the plot. And I also love the magic, the power system for it, the way that they use the magic. We talked about that, like the art. I love the way that they merge art and anime and fantasy. Three of my most favorite things in the world, and that's very interesting. But if I had to rate the world building, I would definitely give the world building a 10. The world building would definitely get a 10. Characters, I would probably say a 7, only because I need to see more. I want to see what they do with Coco's character. I'm still iffy on like Key Freeze because I don't know. Like, yes, he seems like a hero, but he kind of seems like he's got like some other agenda that I don't really know about. Excuse me, but I need to see more of like the other characters and more of like their backstories and kind of like what drives them. Like the three characters that I said were the best in my opinion. We've already seen a good little bit from them, like Coco, Rika, and Orshea and Kefri. We've seen a good bit of like their backstory and like kind of what pushes them forward somewhat. But like for the other characters, I would like to see like more of their backstories, or like a god. We got to see a little bit of a god, but a god was kind of a prick, and I didn't really like that. Like how she was being mean to Coco. Like I know it was because like she was an outsider and all this, but everybody else was cool too, so he could have been cool too, like you know. But I definitely need to see more of the characters, so we'll give the character a 7. For the art style, we give the art style a 9 because I love Studio Ghibli films, and like I just love whimsical fantasy worlds. They're very interesting, and I really really love those. So we'll give that the art style a 9. And for the best character, I'll probably have to say it'll be Reika because like I said, I love Defiance. It's just I love how defiant she is. I love how headstrong and how set she is on doing things outside of the status quo. I cannot stress that enough. Best episode, I probably say the season final. The season final was definitely the best episode to me, only because I enjoyed seeing how they maneuvered around the brim mats in that episode. I did enjoy that. I don't really want to go too much into it, but I'll just say that the final episode, that was the best episode. The biggest strength I think that Witch Hat Atelier has is its power system and the art. The biggest weakness, maybe the pacing. The pacing's a little slow. They do get in and explain a lot of things a little bit slow, but it is also fairly new. So that pacing issue probably could get fixed later down the line, but the pacing was a little bit slow only for the first season. And so for a whole season rating, I'll probably give it like an 8.5. I'll probably give like the whole season an 8.5. It was a good introduction into the world. It kept me hooked. It's very interesting. The art's very interesting. The power system is very interesting. So definitely a good solid 8.5. And for my question, honestly, for y'all ending off this episode, is Witch Hat Atelier going to be the next biggest fantasy anime, or is there any other fantasy anime that you guys think are going to be the best or will be the best? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, my kingdom, I'll see y'all on the next one.